The 1994 Zimbabwe Ariel School UFO incident. The Ariel School UFO incident is one of the most captivating and widely discussed UFO sightings in modern history, particularly because of the number of credible witnesses involved, primarily children, and the consistency of their testimony. This event took place in Ruwa, Zimbabwe on September 16, 1994 at the Ariel School, which at the time was a small, private primary school situated in a rural area near the capital city, Harare. What makes this encounter so compelling is the number of eyewitnesses, approximately 60 children, along with teachers, who reported seeing a flying saucer-shaped craft, witnessing humanoid beings, and experiencing telepathic communications. The incident has since become a key case in the UFO phenomenon, attracting attention from researchers, media outlets, and even prominent psychologists like Dr. John Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist who investigated the case and its impact on the children involved. The day of the incident. Ariel School was located in a rural area with expansive fields and clear skies, offering an unobstructed view of the surroundings. The children were aged between 8 and 12, and they were outside during their morning break when the extraordinary event took place. According to the accounts, the children were playing and socializing when they noticed a strange craft descending from the sky. Around 10 a.m., they saw a shiny, silver, metallic object that appeared to be hovering or descending slowly toward the school grounds. Some witnesses described the object as disc-shaped, while others mentioned that it had a somewhat oval appearance. It wasn't long before the craft touched down in a patch of dense bush near the school, where several children later reported seeing strange beings. The entire event lasted for about 15 to 20 minutes, but for the children, it seemed like an eternity, as what they witnessed was beyond their understanding. The children who were interviewed separately after the event all gave remarkably similar descriptions of what they had seen. The consistency in their testimony is one of the most compelling aspects of the case. Here are some key aspects of their reports. Many children described the craft as a metallic, silvery disc, often with a smooth, shiny surface. Some also reported seeing a slight vibration around the craft, as if it were making some sort of low-frequency hum or noise, although no definitive sound was ever mentioned by the majority. One of the most notable details in many of the children's accounts was the craft's ability to hover in place. Several children claimed that the craft appeared to descend slowly and hover near the ground before landing. Some even reported the object changing shape as it moved, though the most common description was of a disc or saucer shape. The children reported seeing between 2 and 3 humanoid figures near the craft. These beings were described as short, typically around 3 to 4 feet tall, and dressed in tight black jumpsuits or clothing that appeared to be uniform-like. Most notably, the children described the beings having large black eyes, which were perhaps the most striking and unsettling aspect of the encounter. The children reported that the beings had an unusual, almost alien presence, with some noting their telepathic communication. According to several witnesses, they felt that the beings were attempting to communicate telepathically, sending images or feelings rather than words. The messages they received were vague but unsettling. Many children reported feeling a sense of urgency or an awareness of some looming danger to the planet. One child, Tinashe Nyamadziwo, later recalled how the beings communicated thoughts about the future of the Earth, including environmental concerns. These communications were not clear in terms of specific content, but the children reported that the telepathic message seemed to carry a sense of warning about pollution and human disregard for nature. The emotional impact on the children was significant. Many children appeared visibly shaken after the encounter, and their reactions ranged from fear to a sense of awe. Some children later expressed that the experience had a life-changing effect, altering their perceptions of reality and the universe. In subsequent years, many of these children reported recurring dreams or flashbacks of the incident, including vivid recollections of the being's eyes and the sense of urge conveyed through telepathy. For some, the incident caused them to become more aware of environmental issues, while others remained fascinated by the mystery surrounding the UFO encounter. While the adults present at the school didn't directly witness the craft landing or the humanoid figures, their observations added credibility to the event. Some teachers reported seeing the craft in the sky, though they did not see it land. For instance, one teacher mentioned seeing distorted air above the area where the craft had been, almost as if the atmosphere around the craft was being affected by some unknown force. The headmaster, Colin Mackey, reported that some of the children came to him in a state of panic after the event, explaining what they had seen. He initially thought they were just imagining things, but their descriptions were so consistent and detailed that it made him reconsider the possibility that something truly extraordinary had occurred. In the aftermath of the incident, news of the event spread across Zimbabwe and beyond. The incident was covered by the BBC and the Zimbabwe Herald, and many were drawn to the sheer number of witnesses, over 60 children, who had seen the same or similar things. However, as the story gained traction in the media, it also attracted its fair share of skepticism. One of the most significant investigations led by Dr. John E. Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist known for his work in alien abduction studies, Dr. Mack traveled to Zimbabwe to interview the children and assess the psychological impact of the event. His findings were compelling. He concluded that the children were not suffering from any signs of hallucination or suggestibility. Instead, they were credible witnesses to an experience they genuinely believed occurred. Dr. Mack's work in Zimbabwe has also involved interview with the children years later. Many of them recounted the same details of the event, showing little deviation from their original testimonies. This consistency in the children's accounts, even after several years, only served to strengthen the validity of their reports. There have been several theories put forward to explain the Ariel School UFO incident. Here are some of the key ones. Extraterrestrial hypothesis. This is the most widely accepted theory among UFO enthusiasts. The idea is that the children witnessed an encounter with extraterrestrial beings who either arrived on Earth for research or delivered a warning about the planet's future. Psychological, sociological factors. Skeptics argue that the children may have been influenced by their environment or cultural factors, such as popular media about UFOs. However, this theory is contested because of the consistency in the accounts and the fact that the children were largely unaware of UFO-related media before the event. Military or experimental aircraft. Another theory suggests that the UFO was a secret military craft or an experimental vehicle. However, this theory doesn't explain the appearance of the humanoid figures or the telepathic communication the children reported. Atmospheric or environmental phenomenon. Some suggest the children may have witnessed a weather phenomenon or an atmospheric anomaly that created strange visual effects, though this theory doesn't account for the humanoid beings or the telepathic aspects of the encounter. These eyewitness testimonies come from UFO Afri News. During the interviews with the children, several significant, direct statements were made. These are quoted here. One young girl said that when she first looked, she saw 3 figures, one in red, one in white, and one in black. The one in black was sitting on the spaceship. This was the first time the word spaceship had been used. She admitted that what she had presumed that what she saw was a UFO. Guy G. said that the objects were disc-shaped and were glinting among the trees before landing. He pointed out the landing place as at the 3rd pole from the school grounds, and the objects had come in along the electricity wires towards this area. Of the little man, Guy said he was quite lightish in color, not black. His clothes were black, but there was no noise, and they disappeared into the valley down there, below the landing site. Oriana. I saw this black stick, a very thin, long thing on top of the silver thing. Colin Mackey, headmaster. I feel sure the children saw something. I don't believe or disbelieve, but they definitely saw something. I agree that it could be something natural with which we are not familiar, but it was certainly seen by the children. Nathaniel said he saw a ship land on the ground. It had an elongated hull with a platform around the side, and a small man in black was running around. He was about 1 meter plus tall. Luke N. I saw the little man. He had long black hair and was in all black. He looked like a shadow of something. Trevor. I was walking toward the school as the bell had rung, and I saw flashes of light from the corner of my eye. Daniel M. I saw this silver thing among the trees with one thing sitting on the side and another on top. Then they were running back and forth. It looked like a real person, but it was quite plump. At first I thought it was someone from the compound, laborers' quarters, playing around. But his hair was not like the usual African hair, very curly and close to the head. It was almost like a hippie's hair, long and black. Emily B. I saw the little man with longish black hair and big black eyes. They turned around and stared at me and went back into a kind of ship. There was only one ship and some little ones scattered around it. I could see their big eyes and long hair. I definitely saw them. Charity S. I saw this silver thing and a person in black alongside it. It looked like a saucer. When asked by Tim Leach of the BBC if she had heard of UFOs, Charity replied, "I've not heard of UFOs before." Emma C. I saw the objects disappear. They went up about a meter and then they disappeared. The little men were wearing clothes which were very, very shiny black, like a diving suit and tight fitting. I saw a glimpse of his face. His eyes were big. I thought they were aliens from another planet. Lisa P. I saw this silver thing lying on its side. A man dressed in black came out. He had big eyes. I thought it was an alien, and then I thought it was the gardener. The Ariel School UFO incident remains one of the most captivating and mysterious UFO cases in history. Its legacy endures as a key study in UFO research due to the high number of credible witnesses and the remarkable consistency of their accounts. Over the years, some of the children who were involved in the incident have continued to speak publicly about their experiences. Many remain convinced that they encountered something extraordinary that day. Some have even stated that their lives were permanently altered by the encounter, leading them to question the nature of reality, the existence of extraterrestrial life, and humanity's place in the universe. In 2020, a documentary titled The Ariel Phenomenon was released, further exploring the incident through the interviews with the children, the researchers involved, and other individuals who have studied the case. The documentary helped renew interest in the event, particularly with the next generation of UFO enthusiasts and researchers. Though the event remains unexplained and continues to be debated, the Ariel School UFO incident stands as one of the most fascinating examples of a mass sighting, offering insight into the potential reality of extraterrestrial encounters and the profound impact such experiences can have on witnesses. The Hudson Valley UFO sightings. The Hudson Valley UFO sightings, which took place between 1983 and 1984, remain one of the most significant UFO events in U.S. history. Over a period of about 2 years, thousands of people in the Hudson Valley region of New York State reported witnessing unusual aerial phenomena. These sightings were unlike most UFO encounters in that they were observed by a wide range of people, including police officers, pilots, and everyday citizens, many of whom described seeing a massive, low-flying object that defied conventional explanation. The phenomenon was characterized by its consistency, the large number of witnesses, and its visual impact. The Hudson Valley UFO sightings officially began in the spring of 1983, but reports of unusual lights had surfaced earlier. The first major wave began on March 17, 1983, when several residents of the area, including people driving along the Taconic Parkway, reported seeing a massive, brightly lit object moving slowly across the night sky. The object was described as having a distinct V shape or boomerang shape, with rows of bright lights along its edges. Some witnesses reported that the lights appeared to be white or yellow, while others described them as red, green, and blue. These early sightings were followed by more reports over the course of the following months. By the summer of 1983, sightings were occurring regularly, and the number of witnesses grew exponentially. Local news outlets began to pick up on the phenomenon, which brought more attention to the events and led to even more sightings being reported. Witnesses consistently described the object as having certain key features. The object was often described as being huge, with estimates ranging from 300 to over 1,000 feet in length. This made the object unlike most UFO reports, where sightings typically involved much smaller craft. The sheer size of the object, combined with its slow and silent movement, caused many witnesses to wonder if they were witnessing an extraterrestrial craft or something of unknown origin. In addition to the size and shape, the lights on the craft were a striking feature. The lights were reported as being arranged in rows or patterns, often along the edges of the object. The lights were described as being extremely bright, almost blinding, yet they emitted no sound. Some witnesses said that the object appeared to hover above the ground, while others reported that it slowly glided along, almost as if it were following the roads and highways. Many people described the object as moving silently, without the noise one would typically associate with an aircraft of such a large size. Others noted that the object's movement appeared to defy the laws of physics, as it moved in ways that conventional aircraft could not. It was often reported as slow-moving and appeared to change direction abruptly, as though it was under intelligent control. The sightings were not confined to one particular location. They were observed throughout the Hudson Valley region of New York, which includes areas such as Yorktown, Brewster, Newcastle, Poughkeepsie, and Fishkill. The sightings were most frequent along the Taconic Parkway, a major highway running through the valley, as well as in other areas where large stretches of open land allowed for better visibility of the night sky. The locations of the sighting were also significant. In many cases, witnesses reported seeing the object flying just above tree level, hovering over the roadways or fields. It was not uncommon for people driving on the highway to see the object pass overhead, and many accounts from motorists describe pulling over to the side of the road to watch in awe. Some describe the experience as surreal, feeling as though they were part of a collective UFO encounter. A large number of these sightings occurred during the evening hours, often around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., making them particularly dramatic against the backdrop of the darkened sky. The Hudson Valley sightings didn't just involve one or two people at a time. They often involved large groups of witnesses. On several occasions, hundreds of people reported seeing the same object simultaneously, especially during major mass sightings in the summer of 1983. Some incidents even involved police officers and other law enforcement personnel. These professional witnesses added credibility to the sightings and helped lend further legitimacy to the accounts. One of the most well-known incidents occurred in Brewster, New York, where dozens of people saw a large, boomerang-shaped object with bright lights flying overhead. Many of these witnesses were so struck by the sight that they later reported the incident to local media outlets. This led to more sightings being reported in other nearby towns, particularly in Poughkeepsie, Peekskill, and Newburgh. By the fall of 1983, the phenomenon had escalated to the point where it was impossible to dismiss as isolated or coincidental. Reports flooded local newspapers, and news stations in the region began covering the sightings extensively. The phenomenon became a point of fascination for local residents, some of whom would even make special trips to certain roads or areas in hopes of seeing the objects themselves. As the sightings grew in frequency and intensity, the U.S. government and military agencies took notice. The U.S. Air Force was alerted to the phenomenon and began investigating the reports. However, the military was not forthcoming with information, which led to further speculation among UFO researchers and the public. The government's response was widely criticized for being inadequate, as it failed to provide clear answers about what was happening in the skies over the Hudson Valley. Skeptics suggested that the phenomenon could be explained by military exercises, but there was no official confirmation of this. In fact, there were no major military exercises in the region at the time that could explain the sightings. Researchers, including those from the Center of UFO Studies, CUFOS, took a serious interest in the Hudson Valley sightings. One of the most notable UFO investigators in the area was Philip Imbrogno, a local researcher who conducted interviews with witnesses and analyzed the evidence. He noted the consistency of the sightings, particularly the description of a large object moving silently and slowly over the area. Imbrogno and other researchers gathered witness testimonies, which were often compelling in their consistency, but no definitive explanation was ever found. Various explanations were put forth to account for the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. Some skeptics claimed the lights were simply misidentified aircraft or weather balloons, but this theory did not hold up under scrutiny. Others suggested that the lights might be military aircraft or experimental craft, though this theory was also unsupported by evidence. One particularly popular theory was that the phenomenon was the result of ultralight aircraft flying in formation. In fact, in 1984, a group of ultralight pilots admitted to performing coordinated flights that could resemble the lights seen in the Hudson Valley. However, many researchers and witnesses rejected this theory, pointing out that the ultralights were much too small to account for the large size of the object described by witnesses. A more speculative theory suggested that the sightings were the result of extraterrestrial activity. Some UFO researchers believed that the object was a mothership, a large craft with smaller vehicles operating within it. This theory, however, lacked concrete evidence to back it up. The Hudson Valley UFO sightings had a profound effect on the local culture and contributed to the broader UFO phenomenon in the United States. The events sparked a wave of interest in UFOs, and the region became a hotbed for UFO enthusiasts, researchers, and curious individuals. The sightings were widely covered in the media, and books, documentaries, and television shows soon explored the Hudson Valley incidents. Books like Night Siege, The Hudson Valley UFO Sightings by Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Philip Imbrogno, and Bob Pratt were published, and the sightings were the subject of numerous TV documentaries, including segments on unsolved mysteries and In Search Of. The stories of the sightings helped shape the narrative of UFO encounters in the 1980s, contributing to the UFO craze that swept through the United States during that period. The Hudson Valley sightings also marked a shift in how UFO phenomenon was perceived. The sheer number of credible witnesses, many of whom were not prone to making exaggerated claims, lent a certain legitimacy to the reports. Unlike other UFO sightings, which often involve one or two people in isolated locations, the Hudson Valley UFO sightings were widespread and involved many different people, making them harder to dismiss. Although the sightings diminished after 1984, the Hudson Valley UFO phenomenon remains an iconic part of UFO history. The Hudson Valley Conference. The conference was a significant event that was organized in response to the mass UFO sightings that occurred between 1983 and 1984 in the Hudson Valley region of New York. The conference was held to bring together witnesses, researchers, and experts to discuss the ongoing UFO phenomenon and to help provide a platform for further investigation. It was one of the first major public events dedicated to the Hudson Valley sightings and attracted significant media attention at the time. The primary purpose of the conference was to give witnesses and researchers an opportunity to come together and share information, theories, and evidence related to the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. The sightings, which had sparked widespread interest and concern in the region, needed a venue where people could discuss their experiences and where UFO experts could present their findings. The conference also sought to promote a serious and academic approach to the study of UFOs, dispelling the stigma that often accompanied UFO investigations. By organizing the event, UFO researchers hoped to elevate the conversation about the Hudson Valley sightings, turning it into a credible and publicly acknowledged phenomenon rather than one that was dismissed as mere mass hysteria or misidentification of conventional aircraft. In 1984, a Hudson Valley UFO conference was organized and held at the Hillside Inn in New Paltz, New York. This was one of the key events to address the UFO sightings that had been ongoing in the region since 1983. The conference brought together many of the key players involved in investigating the sightings, including researchers, authors, and prominent UFO investigators, as well as local residents who had witnessed the strange phenomena. The event was designed to present the eyewitness accounts of the Hudson Valley UFO sightings to the public and to allow researchers to share their findings. Among those who participated were people who had seen the UFOs firsthand, as well as individuals who had been involved in investigating the phenomena. Philip J. Imbrogno, a well-known UFO researcher, played a prominent role in the event, as he had been deeply involved in investigating the sightings. Imbrogno's research and work became essential to understanding the events, and he helped shape much of the early research into the sightings. During the conference, a range of topics related to the Hudson Valley UFO sightings were presented. These included eyewitness testimonies. One of the most important aspects of the conference was the sharing of eyewitness testimonies. Many people who had seen the UFOs, including law enforcement officers, pilots, and everyday citizens, came forward to describe what they had seen. These accounts helped corroborate the widespread nature of the sightings and painted a more vivid picture of the UFO's appearance and behavior. Investigator insights. UFO researchers like Philip J. Imbrogno and others presented their findings on the phenomenon, offering possible explanations and theories about the nature of the sightings. They discussed the patterns of the sightings, the physical characteristics of the UFOs, and the credibility of the witnesses. The researchers also presented evidence they had gathered, including reports from other sightings which they believed were related to the Hudson Valley events. Theories and explanations. Researchers discussed several possible explanations for the sightings. One of the most popular theories at the time was that the UFOs could have been extraterrestrial spacecraft. Other researchers suggested more down-to-earth possibilities, including experimental military craft, misidentified aircraft, or even phenomena related to natural or atmospheric conditions. The media coverage of the conference was significant. Local news outlets and national media were particularly interested in the conference because of the ongoing interest in the Hudson Valley UFO sightings. The conference allowed the media to engage directly with witnesses and experts, and it gave further legitimacy to the claims being made by UFO researchers. For many, the media's involvement in the conference helped shift the narrative from a fringe topic to one of serious inquiry. The conference also played a role in how the public perceived the UFO sightings. It provided a forum for rational discussion and sought to remove the stigma that often surrounded UFO sightings, especially those that involved a large number of witnesses. As a result, the event helped elevate the status of the Hudson Valley sightings within the broader UFO community and in public discourse. The following news segment comes from the Evening News of Newburgh Beacon, New York, Monday, August 27, 1984. We Are Not Alone. UFO Expert Details Area Sightings by Ward Posh. Brewster. UFOs in the Mid-Hudson. Some witnesses experienced fear. Some did not. For many, it was a mystical experience. For all, it was something they will never forget. These were the reactions passed on to about 800 people during a 12-hour UFO conference at the Henry H. Wells Middle School by those who experienced the phenomenon themselves. UFOs were seen, and they were seen by enough credible people to prove the phenomenon was here. People and the media are beginning to take UFOs seriously as evidence mounts of observations which are verified by several witnesses, speakers noted. An attorney from Tarrytown is spokesperson for the conference. Among other things, he said it was held to make the public and press aware that the UFO phenomenon exists in the area. He also hopes to bring enough pressure to bear for congressional hearings on the subject. The phenomena, or sightings of the flying objects which cannot be explained, was discussed by Dr. J. Allen Hynek of the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois, whose work provided the basis for the motion picture Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Hynek was consulted to the Air Force for 20 years on UFOs. Most of his career he has been in astronomy, and among other posts, he is chairman of the astronomy department at Northwestern University. He also works with a number of observatories. He got called by the Air Force because they needed someone with an astronomical background to investigate UFOs. We called them flying saucers in those days, he recalled. I was a skeptic, he said. He was able to disprove about 80%, and he thought that the remaining 20% could also be explained given sufficient time. Then I came to realize you couldn't discount incredible tales from credible people, he said, and with that began the ongoing investigation of the UFO phenomenon. If we've gone to the moon, he said, why can't they come here? He likes to use a printing card as a comparison of light distance. If you consider the distance from Earth to the moon as the thickness of the card, it would take 19 miles of cards on the scale he cited to represent the distance to a star, and 8 years working steadily without coffee breaks to put them together. How did they get here? It may be on the wings of a thought. They may be beamed down, as in the fictional Star Trek. In categorizing his cases, Hynek placed the 13,000 sightings in two large divisions. 1, those which were seen at a distance, and 2, those seen close, which were also known as close encounters. A close encounter is 500 feet or less. Those of the first kind did not involve any activity, although they may have scared the hell out of the people. Those of the second kind involve parts left on the ground or broken branches. Those of the third kind were direct contact. The Mid-Hudson sightings in Dutchess, Putnam, and Westchester counties were of a nocturnal light variety, but not within the 500 feet for a close encounter, he said. Under the distance sightings, he defined the nocturnal lights, which could not be explained as aircraft, plants, or birds carrying flashlights, daylight sightings, and radar sightings. The Mid-Hudson sighting has produced far more witnesses than any other, more than 100 of the same event, Hynek said. Generally, the sighting is in a rural area with just a handful of witnesses. Here, the picture is changed, and we are in an urban area with highly educated people. Maybe the UFOs decided they had been talking to the wrong people before and decided to come here, he quipped. He feels in time we will come to understand what UFOs are all about, just as we come to understand circulation of the blood, bacteria, and the atom. This is his third visit to the area. He talked to a lot of people in 1983, and said because of the type of person witnessing the event and the number of witnesses of the same incident from different points, it could not be classified as delusion. IBM executives, pilots, naval officers, you don't call this type of person a liar. You'd be subject to a libel action if you did, he said. And on the physical point of view, he said that planes cannot hover for several moments and go so slow as to remain aloft at what has been described as stall or falling speed. Nor could it have been a blimp. The Goodyear blimp was not in the area, and there just aren't that many blimps around. I think this is just the start. I don't know what the other sightings will be, but people should keep cameras available to take pictures, he said. Movies are best, but still, pictures are also good. Time exposures and a number of shots are best. You could set a camera on a fence post and make a time exposure, and you don't need a tripod to do it. He also advised those who made sightings to get witnesses and to jot down what they saw as soon as they could so they don't forget anything. The Hudson Valley continues to be a popular location for UFO enthusiasts, with some continuing to report sightings even today. In the years since, the Hudson Valley UFO sightings have been discussed by researchers as part of the broader UFO phenomenon. While skeptics continue to argue that the sightings were the result of natural or man-made phenomena, the consistency of witness reports and the involvement of credible individuals makes the Hudson Valley UFO sightings one of the most compelling and enduring UFO cases in modern history. The Lubbock Lights represent one of the most notable and intriguing UFO sightings in American history. The events unfolded in Lubbock, Texas during the late summer and early fall of 1951 and captured the attention of the public, media, and the U.S. military. The sightings involved strange lights in the night sky and were extensively documented by witnesses, including respected scientists, adding a layer of credibility to the phenomenon. Although the Air Force investigated the sightings as part of their broader UFO study, they never provided a definitive explanation, leaving the mystery unsolved and fueling speculation for decades. On the warm evening of August 25, 1951, 3 professors from Texas Technological College, now Texas Tech University, Dr. A.G. Oberg, Dr. W.I. Robinson, and Dr. W.L. Ducker gathered outdoors in a backyard in Lubbock to relax and discuss their academic work. At approximately 9:20 p.m., their attention was abruptly drawn to the sky as a group of lights appeared, moving silently and rapidly across the heavens. The professors described seeing about 20 to 30 bluish-green lights, which they observed flying in a V formation. The professors were perplexed by what they saw. Being scientifically minded, they dismissed the possibility of an extraordinary or supernatural event and sought to explain it through natural or man-made phenomenon. However, their observations defied easy categorization. The lights moved far too quickly for birds and did not resemble any known aircraft. What was especially striking was their silence. There was no accompanying sound, a detail that ruled out conventional airplanes of the time. In the days and weeks following the professor's initial sighting, reports of similar phenomenon poured in from other residents of Lubbock and surrounding areas. Witnesses described seeing clusters of glowing lights that moved across the sky with remarkable speed and precision. The descriptions were remarkably consistent, emphasizing the lights' blue-green hue, their swift, silent movement, and their V-shaped formations. Among the witnesses were ordinary citizens, including students, housewives, and business people, who all attested to seeing the lights. The sheer number and diversity of accounts lent credibility to the phenomenon, making it difficult to dismiss as mass hysteria or a hoax. Furthermore, sightings were reported on multiple nights, suggesting that the phenomenon was not a singular occurrence, but a recurring event. The mystery deepened when a Texas Tech freshman, Carl Hart Jr., captured the phenomenon on film. On the night of August 30th, 1951, Hart was lying in bed when he noticed the lights outside his window. Grabbing his Kodak camera, he rushed outside and managed to take 5 photographs of the lights before they disappeared. The images clearly showed a formation of lights in the sky, appearing to corroborate previous eyewitness accounts. Hart's photographs gained widespread attention, being published in local newspapers and later featured in national outlets like Life magazine. The images became iconic, providing a visual reference for the Lubbock Lights and bringing the story to a much larger audience. However, not everyone was convinced of their authenticity. While some experts deemed the photographs genuine, skeptics argued that they could have been fabricated or staged. The controversy over the photos only added to the intrigue surrounding the case. The U.S. Air Force took an active interest in the Lubbock Lights, as they did with many UFO sightings during this period. These investigations were part of Project Blue Book, the Air Force's initiative to study and analyze reports of unidentified flying objects. The Lubbock lights were classified as a high-priority case due to the quality and consistency of the reports, as well as the scientific background of the initial witnesses. Several theories were proposed to explain the sightings. One suggestion was that the lights were caused by plovers, a type of migratory bird common to the area. According to this theory, the bluish-green light could have been reflected off the bird's undersides by Lubbock streetlights. However, this explanation failed to satisfy many witnesses, including the professors who argued that the speed and uniformity of the light's movements could not be attributed to birds. Another theory posited that the lights were the result of classified military aircraft being tested at a nearby Air Force base. This explanation was plausible given the technological advancements in aviation during the early Cold War period, but no direct evidence ever emerged to support it. The lack of any audible sound accompanying the lights also seemed inconsistent with aircraft of the time. Ultimately, the Air Force concluded that the Lubbock lights were likely caused by natural phenomena, but they did not provide a specific or conclusive explanation. The case was officially labeled as unexplained, a designation that left room for endless speculation. The Lubbock lights occurred during an era of growing public interest in UFOs. In the years following World War II, reports of strange objects in the sky had increased dramatically. The term flying saucer had entered the popular lexicon following the 1947 Roswell incident and with Kenneth Arnold's widely publicized UFO sighting that same year. These events, coupled with Cold War anxieties, created fertile ground for fascination with unidentified aerial phenomenon. The Lubbock lights stood out because of the credibility of the witnesses and the photographic evidence. Unlike many other UFO cases, which rely on anecdotal accounts, the Lubbock lights offered tangible data that could be analyzed. This made the case a cornerstone of early UFO studies and a subject of enduring interest for researchers and enthusiasts. This next section comes from the Abilene Reporter News, September 1st, 1951. More West Texans see Lubbock's flying lights. Lubbock, September 1st. Flying saucers? Shooting stars? Imagination? Nobody knows for sure just what were the lights that flashed across the sky Thursday night in this West Texas area. Many said they saw them. Carl Hart, 18, took pictures of the objects he said went faster than any jets I ever saw. Hart said he was in bed watching the stars when he saw the first group of shiny, mysterious objects flash by about 11:30 p.m. He said he jumped out of bed and grabbed his camera. He said a second group passed overhead as he got outside his house and he took a picture. He made another picture of a third group that whizzed by. His photograph showed about 18 lights or objects in the first picture and about 21 in the second. The objects in the first picture were V-shaped and in the second group appeared to be round and shiny dots. The head of the biology department of Texas Tech, J.C. Cross, examined the pictures under a microscope. He said they definitely were not birds that may have given off a phosphorus glow, as some skeptics suggested. 3 professors at Texas Tech last Saturday night said they saw similar objects flash through skies at an incredible speed. A string of beads was the way one professor described them. Roger Dodds, a Texas Tech student, and S.E. West also reported seeing the objects. Dodds said the ones he saw were V-shaped. West said his were like a U. The Lubbock lights remain one of the most famous UFO incidents in history and continue to captivate the public imagination. The case has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and discussions among UFO researchers. It also played a significant role in shaping the public's perception of UFOs, reinforcing the idea that such phenomena could be witnessed by ordinary people and studied scientifically. Despite decades of analysis and speculation, the mystery of the Lubbock lights has never been definitively solved. Whether the lights were birds, military aircraft, or something else entirely, they represent a compelling reminder of humanity's enduring curiosity about the unknown. The case underscores the importance of maintaining an open mind and a scientific approach when investigating unexplained phenomena. In many ways, the Lubbock lights exemplify the intersection of science, folklore, and the human desire to explore the mysteries of the universe. As such, they continue to inspire both serious inquiry and imaginative speculation, ensuring their place in the annals of UFO history. The Phoenix Lights Incident. On the evening of March 13, 1997, thousands of people across Arizona, Nevada, and Sonora, Mexico witnessed a series of unidentified flying objects that came to be collectively known as the Phoenix Lights. The incident remains one of the most compelling and widely reported UFO events in modern history, sparking debates, investigations, and cultural fascination that persists decades later. The event was characterized by two distinct sightings: a V-shaped formation of lights traveling across the sky, and a series of stationary orbs over Phoenix. At approximately 7:30 p.m. MST, the first reports began in Henderson, Nevada. Witnesses described a V-shaped formation of lights traveling southward. A man reported seeing 5 lights in a V formation moving silently across the night sky. 8 to 8:30 p.m. MST. As the lights moved into Arizona, they were observed in the Prescott area. Witnesses there described the phenomenon as a solid object, blocking out stars as it passed overhead. It was immense, silent, and slow-moving. Some observers estimated the object to be as large as a mile wide. The lights in the V formation were steady and white, with some describing a faint red glow at the tips. 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. MST. The lights reached Phoenix and surrounding areas, witnessed by thousands, including police officers and local government officials. Witnesses described the formation as maintaining a consistent trajectory and altitude. Some residents said they could see the outline of a massive craft attached to the lights, while others perceived the lights as independent objects. The sightings prompted a flurry of calls to local authorities, news outlets, and Luke Air Force Base. 10 p.m. MST. A second event occurred involving stationary lights appearing over the Phoenix metropolitan area. These lights were distinct from the earlier V-shaped formation. They hovered in a line, remaining visible for several minutes before gradually disappearing. The Phoenix Lights incident involved a broad cross-section of witnesses. These included residents of varying ages, law enforcement officials, pilots, and military personnel. The credibility of the reports is bolstered by the sheer number of people who saw the lights and the consistency in their descriptions. Many witnesses noted the lack of sound from the objects, unusual given their apparent size. Others described a sense of awe and unease, citing the vastness of the phenomenon and its unexplainable nature. I am going to read an excerpt from the Day newspaper, Sunday, June 22, 1997. Arizona still buzzing with questions over unexplained lights in the sky. Steve Elliott. One night in March, Sue Kryszton heard her husband call from outside. Strange lights appeared in the sky. They had occasionally seen odd lights before from their hilltop home in North Phoenix, but these looked different. They were very bright, very large, amber or orange colored, she said. They almost looked flame-like, although it wasn't the shape of a flame. And this night, there was another difference. Mike Kryszton had his video camera and captured 3 minutes of what appeared to be lights hovering above the city. They weren't the only people who saw strange things the night of March 13th. People from Tucson in the south to Kingman in northwestern Arizona called authorities and groups that track UFO sightings to report lights, many saying they were in a boomerang formation. Radar screens showed nothing, and officials dismissed the reports. But the issue won't go away quietly. You can't ignore that something happened. Something was out there, said Frances Emma Barward, a Phoenix City Councilwoman. She didn't see the lights, but enough people had called her about them that she is convinced something happened, and she wants someone to investigate. And then the Arizona sightings hit the big time. USA Today ran a story on the phenomenon last week, and other major media outlets followed. The Krystons' videotape was played on national television. Governor Fife Symington even got into the fray, getting headlines during a break in his federal fraud trial on Thursday when he said he'd ordered a state investigation of the sightings. He called a news conference later to say it was all a joke, and dressed his chief of staff as an alien for comic relief. Even with the snickers, Barwood and others see the recent attention as vindication and proof that the phenomenon is worthy of investigation. Even if the phenomenon turns out to be man-made, Charles Painter would like an answer. Somebody knows what it is, he said. He thinks it was stealth bombers that he saw that night while driving from Tucson to Phoenix. They have to test those periodically to make sure they don't have any radar track, he said. Painter saw lights in a triangle formation, while Sue Kryston saw several lights. Painter said he saw just 3, which appeared much larger than the landing lights he saw on planes heading into Phoenix. He pulled off the highway to listen for jet engines, but heard none. Sue Kryston is quick to say she isn't claiming to have seen a spacecraft, but she said she and her husband have always attributed previous sightings of odd lights to Luke Air Force Base, which sits west of Phoenix. This particular night, they were further to the east than they'd ever been before, she said. Peter Davenport, head of the National UFO Reporting Center, a private organization based in Seattle, said his office received hundreds of calls about that night. He said the reports were remarkably consistent in terms of time, location, and description. Without a doubt, I think the events over Arizona are the most dramatic UFO sightings that has been reported to the hotline in the 3 years I've been director of the hotline in Seattle, he said. Initial explanations and responses. The military initially offered no explanation for the sightings, which fueled speculation and public concern. Later, the U.S. Air Force attributed the stationary lights to flares dropped by an A-10 Warthog aircraft during a training exercise at the Barry Goldwater Range southwest of Phoenix. This explanation covered the stationary lights, but left the earlier V formation unaccounted for. Arizona Governor Fife Symington initially treated the incident lightly, holding a press conference where an aide dressed as an alien was introduced as the source of the lights. However, Symington reversed his stance, revealing that he had witnessed the phenomenon and believed it to be otherworldly. His account added to the legitimacy of the event in the eyes of many. Skeptics have offered alternative explanations, including aircraft in formation, atmospheric phenomena, and misidentifications of stars or planets. However, these theories often fail to account for the scope and consistency of the sightings, particularly the descriptions of a solid, massive object. This next newspaper article comes from the Daily Courier, Tuesday, March 18, 1997. UFO debate goes on. Officer says he saw helicopters, by Laura Hinchy. An officer with the Prescott Valley Police Department saw an unidentified flying object last week, but said he believes it was helicopters. The object or objects have yet to be explained, but have been widely reported across many parts of Arizona, including the Paulden and Prescott Valley areas, where the objects apparently were seen first. It was a helicopter, without a doubt, said Prescott Valley Police Sergeant Ron Lohman. You could tell by the V formation they were flying in. Others aren't convinced the objects were man-made or man-driven. Peter B. Davenport, director of the National UFO Reporting Center, NUFORC, in Seattle, said the object could not have been any type of conventional aircraft. Davenport, in an internet report, said the object was witnessed by several people as it apparently hovered silently, and it covered the distance between Paulden and Prescott not less than 30 miles, in about 1 to 2 minutes, Davenport said. Also, the lights seen on it were not consistent with any type of strobe lights or navigation lights on any type of known aircraft, either private or commercial, Davenport said. The object moved too fast to be a balloon or the Hale-Bopp comet, which is virtually stationary relative to other heavenly bodies, Davenport said. The last report to New Fork was from Kingman, where a young man en route to Los Angeles called from a phone booth and reported seeing a large and bizarre cluster of lights moving slowly in the northern sky. Luke Air Force Base spokeswoman Sergeant Rolla Sutmiller said Friday that the base had received no calls Thursday night regarding the UFOs. She said no planes were sent out that night. But Luke's spokeswoman, Sergeant Michelle Demers, said calls did come in on Friday, asking if the objects were jets from the base. But, she added, any calls reporting UFOs on Thursday night would have been referred elsewhere. In contradiction to Sutmiller's statement on Friday that Luke does not send fighters out at night, Demers said a squadron was flying between 6 and 9 p.m. Thursday night, but only around the base. She said only 2 F-16 planes of the squadron were out during that time frame on training flights, and they were back in by 8:30 p.m. Davenport said a lengthy telephone call was received by New Fork from one or more parties who claimed to have been personal witnesses to a scramble of F-15C fighters. They said the fighters had intercepted the object over downtown Phoenix, photographed the object with gun cameras, and returned to base. Davenport said the sources went on to describe how the base had closed down, how the pilots of the fighters succeeded in approaching to 1 mile of the object, and how their targeting radar had been neutralized by the objects. Davenport said that the sources provided copious details about the incident, citing precise times, the names and ranks of the pilots, contents of the radio conversation with the pilots while they were in the air, and many other aspects of the events that night. Davenport said his staff has been unable to corroborate any of the claims. A sighting reported to New Fork from Dewey was from a man and his family who reported seeing the object hover for several minutes above them. He reported that based on his flying experience, the object was not more than 1,000 feet above the ground. The man emphasized that there was absolutely no sound emanating from the object. It was absolutely silent and moving at a very slow pace. The Phoenix Lights garnered extensive media coverage, both locally and nationally. The incident was featured on major news outlets, talk shows, and documentaries. The lack of a definitive explanation fueled public fascination and conspiracy theories. Astronomers and skeptics analyzed the incident, with some attributing the lights to mundane causes such as commercial aircraft or atmospheric illusions. However, no scientific consensus has been reached regarding the V-shaped formation. The Phoenix Lights have become a cultural touchstone referenced in films, books, and television shows. The incident is often cited in discussions about UFOs, government transparency, and the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Despite extensive investigations and speculation, key questions about the Phoenix Lights remain unanswered. What was the V-shaped formation witnessed by thousands? Why was there no official acknowledgement or explanation for the earlier event? Could the sightings represent advanced technology, either terrestrial or extraterrestrial? The Phoenix Lights incident of 1997 remains one of the most compelling and mysterious UFO sightings in history. While the stationary lights were attributed to military flares, the V-shaped formation has defied conclusive explanation. The event has left an indelible mark on Arizona's cultural landscape, inspiring ongoing debate and interest in the possibility of extraterrestrial life. The 1976 Tehran UFO Incident. The 1976 Tehran UFO incident is often regarded as one of the most compelling and well-documented UFO encounters in history. It stands out because of the number of credible witnesses, including Iranian military personnel, fighter pilots, and radar operators, all of whom provided consistent accounts of the mysterious events. This incident, which took place on the night of September 19, 1976, near Tehran, Iran, has been the subject of much debate and research, and its details are so extraordinary that they continue to spark interest and speculation to this day. The case remains notable for the combination of visual sightings, radar tracking, and interference with aircraft instrumentation. This extraordinary event was witnessed not only by military personnel, but also civilians, and the Iranian government took the incident seriously, even launching an official investigation afterward. The Tehran UFO incident has become a staple in UFO lore and is often cited in books, documentaries, and studies of unexplained aerial phenomenon. Before diving into the specifics of the incident itself, it's important to understand the geopolitical context of the time. The late 1970s were marked by intense Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Iran, under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was an ally of the United States, receiving significant military and technological support. The incident occurred at a time when both countries were heavily involved in intelligence and surveillance operations, which led some to speculate that the UFOs could have been advanced military technology from either superpower. Additionally, Tehran had been a hub of political unrest as the Iranian Revolution began to build momentum. The incident happened just months before the revolution would overthrow the Shah and establish the Islamic Republic of Iran. In this charged political and military atmosphere, an event as unusual as the Tehran UFO incident was bound to attract attention, and many believed it could have had implications beyond the realm of extraterrestrial phenomena. The sightings begin. A civilian's report. The first indication of a strange object in the sky came from a civilian pilot flying near Tehran on the evening of September 9, 1976. Around 10:30 p.m. local time, the pilot observed a bright, fast-moving object in the sky that appeared to be descending toward the city. This pilot was not only a civilian, but also a trained observer, and he quickly made the decision to report the sighting to the military authorities. Given the prominence of the Iranian military at the time, the sighting was immediately taken seriously, and the civilian pilot was instructed to stay in communication with Iranian radar facilities. What followed was a series of events that would elevate the incident from a simple UFO sighting to a full-fledged military encounter. Once the civilian pilot's report was confirmed, the Iranian military became actively involved in investigating the situation. Iranian radar operators at the Murabad airport in Tehran began tracking an unusual object on radar. The object was moving erratically at high speeds and was unlike anything that could be easily explained by conventional aircraft or missiles. It is important to note that Iranian radar operators were highly trained and capable of distinguishing between various types of aerial activity. The object they were tracking displayed unusual speeds, maneuverability, and flight patterns which immediately raised concerns. The radar operators were not dealing with a conventional aircraft, and the situation warranted further investigation. In response to the radar reports, the Iranian military scrambled 2 F-4 Phantom fighter jets to intercept the unidentified object. These fighter jets were state-of-the-art aircraft capable of high-speed intercepts and had sophisticated radar systems of their own. The pilots of these jets were highly trained and familiar with the skies above Tehran. The first jet, piloted by Colonel Parviz Jafari, was dispatched to investigate the UFO. As Colonel Jafari approached the object, he reported his instruments began to malfunction. His radar was unable to lock onto the target, and his aircraft's communication system was jammed. This unusual interference with his instruments was a striking detail, as such phenomena were not typical of military aircraft at the time. As Jafari got closer to the object, he observed a bright, disc-shaped object that was hovering or descending rapidly. He noted that the object seemed to pulse with light, and it displayed a level of maneuverability that was beyond the capability of any known aircraft. Despite his best efforts, Colonel Jafari was unable to get any closer to the object due to the strange interference affecting his instruments. He was forced to turn back, unable to make visual contact or to assess the object in any further detail. The Iranian military, eager to get more information on the UFO, scrambled a second F-4 Phantom to engage. This time, Captain Jesmid Bahai piloted the aircraft. The mission was similar to the first, but Captain Bahai soon encountered the same bizarre phenomenon. His aircraft's radar and communication systems were also affected by the UFO's presence. As Captain Bahai approached the UFO, he described seeing a pulsating light which again appeared to be disc-shaped. However, as soon as he got within a certain range of the object, the UFO accelerated suddenly and vanished at an incredible speed. The object's speed and the way it disappeared were described as beyond belief, with Captain Bahai remarking that no conventional aircraft, let alone any military technology, could have displayed such extraordinary capabilities. Throughout the entire encounter, both ground and airborne radar continued to track the object. The coordination between the radar operators and the pilots was critical to verifying the UFO's unusual behavior. The object seemed to exhibit an uncanny ability to evade interception, constantly changing its altitude, direction, and speed in ways that were not typical of any known aircraft at the time. The radar confirmation added an extra layer of credibility to the sighting. Unlike visual reports, which could be influenced by human error, the radar data provided an objective confirmation of the object's existence and its erratic movements. This was particularly significant because the radar operators were seasoned professionals and not prone to misinterpreting standard airborne phenomena. In addition to the radar and visual reports from the fighter pilots, the Tehran UFO incident was corroborated by a number of other witnesses. Military personnel, including ground-based radar operators and air traffic controllers, all described similar experiences. They reported seeing the object on their radar screens, as well as hearing the pilots' accounts of strange instrument failures and the object's erratic movements. One of the most striking elements of the Tehran UFO incident is the consistency of the eyewitness accounts. While individuals from different military branches and radar stations did not have access to one another's reports, their descriptions of the objects and its behavior were remarkably similar. This consistency has played a key role in legitimizing the incident within the UFO research community. Following the incident, the Iranian military conducted an internal investigation to determine what had occurred. The investigation found no conventional explanation for the events, and no known aircraft or missile systems matched the behavior of the object. The military was unable to identify the UFO and suggested that it might have been an extraterrestrial craft, though they could not say so definitively. The Iranian government did not publicly address the incident in detail, but it is known that the military considered it to be a serious and unexplained event. The fact that military personnel and equipment were involved in tracking and attempting to intercept the object made the event all the more intriguing. The event was widely covered in the Iranian press at the time, and it soon attracted the attention of UFO researchers around the world. Over the years, the Tehran UFO incident has been featured in various documentaries, books, and studies, many of which highlight the credibility of the witnesses and the extraordinary nature of the event. Theories and explanations. Over time, several theories have emerged about the nature of the object involved in the Tehran UFO incident. Some of the most widely discussed theories include extraterrestrial hypothesis. Given the UFO's extraordinary speed, maneuverability, and the fact that it interfered with the pilot's instruments, many UFO researchers believe that the object was an extraterrestrial spacecraft. The combination of radar confirmation, visual sightings, and physical interference suggests that the object was not a conventional aircraft. The idea that an alien craft visited Tehran and displayed such advanced technology is one of the most popular theories. Advanced military technology. Another theory posits that the object was some form of advanced military technology, possibly developed by either the United States or the Soviet Union. The Cold War was at its height during the 1970s, and both superpowers were known to be developing advanced aircraft and missile systems. However, there are no known military craft capable of demonstrating the speed and maneuverability described by the witnesses. Psychological phenomena. Some skeptics have suggested that the incident might have been a case of mass hysteria or misperception. This theory argues that the witnesses, under the stress of the Cold War environment, might have exaggerated or misinterpreted ordinary objects in the sky as something extraordinary. However, the radar data and the fact that multiple independent witnesses reported similar experiences make this explanation unlikely. Atmospheric or natural phenomena. A final theory proposes that the UFO could have been some sort of atmospheric or natural phenomenon, such as a meteorological anomaly or ball lightning. However, this explanation does not account for the highly advanced characteristics of the object or the malfunctioning of the aircraft instruments. The following newspaper article comes from Post News out of Kingsport, Tennessee, May 19, 1977. UFO jams jet's electrical systems in supersonic chase, by John M. Cathcart. The UFO split in two, and a glowing section of it shot out at the Phantom jet fighter. It's about 20 miles behind, the alarmed Air Force pilot radioed the tower. "It's following me. Oh, now..." The radio went dead. Stunned air traffic controllers sat in disbelief as they watched the jet scream low over the control tower, the brilliant object now a dark rectangle atop the jet plane. The bizarre incident was only part of the mysterious series of events that occurred last September when a UFO staged a spectacular aerial display in full view of airport tower personnel and baffled commanders of the Imperial Iranian Air Force. The UFO jammed communications on two Iranian fighter planes sent up to intercept it, and launched a smaller UFO to chase one plane away. Two jets were scrambled and they locked onto the target with radar, but they received very strong jamming, said Deputy Commander-in-Chief of Operations, Lieutenant General Abdullah Azbarzan, who confirmed that the UFO maneuvered for hours over Tehran, the capital of Iran. The intercept was further verified by the veteran air traffic controller at Tehran's Mehrabad Airport, Hussein Peruzi, who directed the fighter pilots by radio and saw the object himself. And a second Iranian air traffic force general, the senior in command at the time, also saw the UFO for himself and gave the order to intercept, the controller revealed. The sensational chain of events began at 10:30 p.m. last September 18th, when calls began to come in to Air Controller Peruzzi from excited citizens who had sighted a strange object in the sky. It seemed to be changing shape rapidly. One caller described it as like a fan with 4 blades, another as sometimes dividing in two and joining together again. After the fourth such call, Peruzzi, controller at Mehrabad for 13 years, went to an outdoor terrace and searched the sky with binoculars. After about 5 minutes, I saw the object in a rectangular shape about 5 miles away at a height of about 6,000 feet and northeast of my tower, he told the Enquirer. The right end was blue, the left end was blue, and in the middle was a flashing red light. The object was seesawing up and down and moving toward the north. Peruzzi notified the Air Force, and General Abdullah Yusuf, senior officer on duty, responded by phone. Said Peruzzi, he went out on the porch of his house and on the telephone said to me, "Yes, I can see something. It isn't a star." So he ordered one of the Phantom jets on standby to scramble. The second jet was sent up later when the first ran low on gas after its chase. General Azerbaijan said that whenever the planes got within 15 miles or so of the UFO, most of their electric and electronic systems were suddenly and mysteriously knocked out until they moved away. That happened to 3 different planes, he noted. "We had 2 fighters. That happened to both of them, and 1 airliner which was flying in the area at the same time. This technology they, in the UFO, were using for jamming was something we haven't had before, and we don't have it. And it was extremely strange and unexplainable." The general described the UFO as being unlike any known aircraft. He said, "It was quite circular, and just like a saucer, and the shape of the cockpit was a ball, half a ball." Peruzzi, in direct radio contact with the jet pilots, said he told the first one up to get close to the object, and the pilot reported, "I'm going to Mach 2, about 1,400 miles an hour, and I'm 50 miles behind the object. I can't catch him. It's no use to follow anymore. I can't catch him." From that time on, Peruzzi said the Phantom and its replacement were chasing the object all over the Iranian sky to the north and west, with the UFO showing fantastic speeds and seeming to disappear and reappear. Peruzzi said the second Phantom pilot reported that the UFO had ejected a luminous object at him, and that he was flying back. Then the radio went dead as the Phantom jet reached the control tower and screamed past, a dark rectangular object appearing to be on top of it. Radio communication with the plane was later re-established. After several more attempts by the second Phantom to approach the UFO, with his electrical systems going out every time, the pilot was ordered to return to base. It was then 4 a.m. Although the object emitted by the UFO was seen to descend to the ground, no trace was ever found of it afterward. When the second Phantom left the area, the UFO started to climb higher and higher until it eventually disappeared in the sky. But, incredible as these events were, there was to be a bizarre sequel. Some 45 minutes after the UFO left the Iranian sky, a Boeing 707 jet of the TAP airline leaving Lisbon, Portugal, more than 3,200 miles from Tehran, almost crashed into a brightly lit object that shot across its course. And the object over Lisbon, as described by the pilots and crew of the 707, closely corresponded with the descriptions of the UFO seen over Tehran earlier that night. The aftermath and lasting impact. The Tehran UFO incident remains an unsolved mystery. Despite the extensive documentation of the event, no definitive explanation has emerged. The reports from the Iranian military, the radar data, and the consistent eyewitness accounts make this case one of the most compelling UFO encounters on record. Over the years, the Tehran UFO incident has been the subject of extensive study by both UFO enthusiasts and skeptics. It has been featured in numerous books, television documentaries, and academic studies. The event is often cited as one of the best documented cases of UFO activity involving military personnel, and it continues to inspire debate about the existence of extraterrestrial life and the potential for advanced technologies beyond our current understanding. In Iran, the incident remains part of the country's UFO lore, and it is remembered as one of the most significant and puzzling aerial encounters of the 20th century. The Westall UFO Incident. The 1966 Westall UFO incident remains one of Australia's most well-known and perplexing UFO sightings, involving multiple witnesses, including students, teachers, and local residents. The event occurred on April 6, 1966, in the suburb of Westall, located near Melbourne, Victoria. It has since sparked intense curiosity and a variety of theories, but despite ongoing investigation, the incident remains unresolved and unexplained. The event unfolded around 11 a.m. at 2 educational institutions, Grange Horse Primary School and the nearby Westall Secondary College. These schools were situated near an open area of land known as the Grange Horse Reserve, a stretch of relatively undeveloped land surrounded by suburban housing. The area, consisting of both grassy fields and bushland, provided the perfect vantage point for observing the sky, which many witnesses took full advantage of during the break period. On that day, students were outside during a mid-morning break, likely unaware that they were about to witness a strange event that would become part of Australia's UFO history. As students milled about on the school grounds, a number of them noticed something unusual in the sky. What they saw was an unidentified flying object, later described as a flying saucer or disc-shaped craft, moving in an odd and erratic manner. The first witnesses to spot the object were the students at Grange Horace Primary School who were outside during their break. It was a clear and sunny day, ideal for observing the sky. What began as an isolated sighting quickly turned into a mass observation, with many students from both schools noticing the same strange object in the sky. The object, as described by witnesses, was metallic, with a saucer-like or disc shape. Some recalled seeing the object as silver or gray, while others described it as having a more dull, metal-like appearance. The craft was seen moving across the sky at low altitude, seemingly hovering at times before accelerating and darting in various directions. Several students claimed that the UFO initially hovered for a few minutes, but then zoomed off at an extraordinary speed. The movements of the object were described as erratic and highly unusual. Witnesses reported that it appeared to change direction instantly, accelerating at speeds that defied conventional aircraft capabilities. Some students mentioned hearing a faint hum or buzzing sound, while others described the object as emitting a soft glowing light. As the sighting continued, it was not just the students who were captivated by the object. Teachers and staff members from both schools also saw the UFO. Several teachers later gave interviews and recalled being just as confused and amazed as the students. Some teachers described seeing the object with their own eyes from within classrooms, while others rushed outside to get a closer look when they heard the commotion from the students. Reports from teachers also varied. Some said they saw the object briefly hover above the Grange Horse Reserve before speeding off at incredible speed, while others thought it appeared to dip behind a nearby set of trees or disappear behind the distant Dandenong Ranges. Despite the large number of witnesses, there was no immediate agreement on the exact nature of the object. However, most shared the belief that this was an unidentified flying craft, unlike any conventional aircraft. The sighting lasted for about 15 minutes. As quickly as it appeared, the UFO was gone, vanishing from the sky. Some witnesses reported seeing the object shoot off into the distance at a tremendous speed, while others stated that it simply disappeared without any trace. In the aftermath of the event, the school's staff and local residents were left in a state of confusion and disbelief. The unusual nature of the object's appearance and behavior, coupled with the fact that so many people had witnessed it, raised questions that have yet to be definitively answered. As soon as the UFO vanished, the teachers and students began to discuss what they had seen. However, their conversations were soon interrupted by school authorities, who reportedly advised the witnesses to remain silent about the event. According to several testimonies, the school staff were instructed to avoid drawing attention to the sighting, with some students allegedly warned that speaking out about the event could result in punishment or expulsion. Within hours of the sighting, local police and military personnel are said to have arrived at the schools and the surrounding area. Witnesses later recalled seeing officials questioning the students, as well as taking photographs and evidence from those who had managed to snap pictures of the UFO. In some cases, witnesses claimed that their film rolls or photographs were confiscated by authorities, further adding to the sense that the event was being actively suppressed. Cover-up allegations. In the years following the Westall UFO incident, allegations of a cover-up have become a central part of the narrative surrounding the event. Many witnesses, including students and teachers who were involved in the sighting, have spoken of being pressured to keep quiet about the encounter. Some have claimed that they were told explicitly by school officials, police officers, and military personnel not to discuss the event with others. These claims of suppression have fueled conspiracy theories, with some suggesting that the authorities were trying to hide the truth about extraterrestrial visitation or a secret military experiment. Others have proposed that the object could have been a government test vehicle or a military aircraft, though no definitive evidence has been found to support this theory. The apparent cover-up added an element of mystery to the already puzzling incident, leaving many to question whether there was more to the event than the public was ever allowed to know. Over the years, numerous witnesses have come forward with their accounts of the Westall UFO incident. Some have expressed confidence that what they saw was a UFO of extraterrestrial origin, while others remain more skeptical but still acknowledge that they witnessed something out of the ordinary. One of the most well-known witnesses is a teacher from Grange Horse Primary School who later spoke out about the sighting. The teacher described the object as hovering for several minutes before taking off at great speed. Other witnesses who were students at the time have also recalled seeing the object perform unusual maneuvers, including sharp turns and sudden acceleration. Some individuals remembered seeing a second object in the sky during the incident, leading some to believe that there may have been multiple UFOs involved. Despite the varied accounts, there were common elements in many of the testimonies. Nearly all the witnesses agreed on the basic description of the object: metallic, saucer-shaped, and capable of erratic movement. However, there were some discrepancies in the details of the object's appearance and behavior, with different people focusing on different aspects of the sighting. What could it have been? Since the Westall UFO incident, several possible explanations have been proposed, but none have provided conclusive answers. Some of the most common theories include military aircraft or secret technology. One theory is that the object was a military aircraft or experimental craft being tested by the Australian government or foreign powers. Proponents of this theory point to the erratic movement of the object and its speed, which they suggest could indicate that it was a high-tech military vehicle. However, no evidence has ever been found to support this, and many skeptics argue that the behavior of the object was too extreme to be explained by known aircraft at the time. Weather balloons or atmospheric phenomena. Another possible explanation is that the object was a weather balloon or some other form of airborne debris, possibly reflecting the sun or being caught in a wind current. However, this explanation is often dismissed by witnesses who describe the object's behavior as too deliberate and controlled to fit the characteristics of balloons or natural phenomena. Extraterrestrial hypothesis. The most popular theory among UFO enthusiasts is that the object was an alien spacecraft. Advocates of this theory argue that the object's behavior, particularly its speed, sudden direction changes, and disappearance, suggests that it was not of earthly origin. However, without concrete evidence, this theory remains speculative. Psychological or mass hysteria. Some skeptics have suggested that the sighting was a case of collective misperception or mass hysteria. According to this theory, the excitement of the students and teachers, combined with the suggestion of a UFO, led people to misinterpret mundane objects or phenomena as something extraordinary. The following first-hand account comes from Judith Maggie in the Australian Flying Saucer Review of 1996. I was in class when a disturbance occurred outside. I didn't take any notice, and when the bell went for morning recess, my classmates and I went to our lockers and then walked out into the yard. We noticed that all the girls who were doing physical education were gathered right down near the end of our playing field. Suddenly, the school came alive with excitement, and everybody began running down towards where the girls were. I was among the surging mob. I had seen something that looked very unusual in the sky. As I looked up, I saw a dazzling, silvery object flying around some pine trees which grew on a ridge about a quarter of a mile directly behind the school. It then flew across some open paddocks also behind the school and returned to the pines. On the other side of the ridge, there is a small field. The thing hovered over the pines and descended behind them and must have been directly over the field. I then lost sight of it because of the pines. As the thing was out of sight, I began to notice many private aircraft, mainly Cessna, flying toward the pines. It was then that the thing reappeared and rose to the level of the approaching aircraft. This enabled me to get a rough idea of its size. It was a silvery object as long as one of the Cessnas, but very thin. As the aircraft approached, the thing tilted on about a 45-degree angle and started to move into the distance, gradually gaining height. The planes increased their speed and began to follow it, but the object streaked away, leaving the planes far, far behind. The planes turned back, but we all stood hoping it would return, but it didn't, so we all went into school 15 minutes late. After school, 2 friends and I went to the field where the object had descended. In a few minutes, we were crawling under a barbed wire fence which surrounded the field at a height of about 4 feet. We waded through the waist-high grass, making for a gap in it. Suddenly, we were there. We found ourselves standing in a spot where the grass had been utterly crushed against the earth. It was an area of about 25 to 30 feet in diameter. Cows could not have done it because the fence was barbed, and also cows would have left a track through the grass. There was no track. The object had descended over the field. Could it have done this? It all leads back to the same question. What was the object? Some people say it was a weather balloon, but do weather balloons go up and down quickly, crush grass, and fly across the skies faster than reasonably speedy aircraft? Otherwise, your guess is as good as mine. Despite the passage of time, the Westall UFO incident remains a significant part of Australian UFO history. It continues to be a topic of discussion among UFO researchers, enthusiasts, and those who are directly involved in the event. In 2007, a documentary called The Westall UFO was released, featuring interviews with witnesses and investigating the ongoing mystery. The event has also been revisited by UFO researchers who have examined the area, spoken to remaining witnesses, and analyzed available evidence. Despite numerous attempts to explain the incident, there is still no definitive answer to the question of what happened on April 6, 1966. The Westall UFO incident is a remarkable and mysterious event that has captured the imagination of people around the world. Despite over half a century of investigation, the true nature of the object remains unidentified. With the passing of many of the original witnesses and the lack of physical evidence, the incident has continued to be shrouded in mystery, making it one of the most enduring UFO encounters in history. The 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident. The 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident, often referred to as the Washington National Airport sightings or the Washington Flap, remains one of the most notable and mysterious UFO cases in modern history. It involved a series of unusual radar detections and visual sightings over the U.S. Capitol, sparking widespread public attention, government scrutiny, and debate. The incident unfolded during a time of heightened UFO interest in the United States, adding to its significance. The early 1950s was a period of intense fascination with unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, in the United States. The term flying saucer had entered the public lexicon following the 1947 Kenneth Arnold incident near Mount Rainier, Washington. Coupled with Cold War tensions, Americans were increasingly attentive to the skies, concerned about both extraterrestrial visitors and potential Soviet threats. By 1952, Project Blue Book, a U.S. Air Force initiative, had been established to investigate UFO sightings systematically. Against this backdrop, the Washington, D.C. sightings occurred, capturing national and international attention. Key events of the incident: July 19th through July 20th, 1952, the first wave. On the evening of July 19th, radar operators at Washington National Airport, now Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, and nearby Andrews Air Force Base detected unknown objects in the restricted airspace. The radar blips showed objects traveling at extraordinary speeds, up to 7,000 miles per hour, and performing abrupt maneuvers such as sharp turns and hovering that defied the capabilities of contemporary aircraft. Air traffic controllers visually confirmed some of the objects as glowing lights moving erratically in the night sky. These sightings were corroborated by civilian pilots flying in the area. Notably, the objects intruded into sensitive airspace near the White House and the U.S. Capitol, heightening concerns about national security. July 26 and 27, the second wave. A week later, the phenomena reoccurred under similar circumstances. Once again, radar operators at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base detected unidentified objects. Visual sightings were reported by both military and civilian witnesses. Fighter jets were scrambled to intercept the objects, but the pilots reported that the UFOs disappeared from radar and visual contact when approached, only to reappear later in different locations. One notable account came from a fighter pilot who described encountering brilliant lights in the night that moved too quickly and unpredictably to be pursued effectively. The Washington incidents received extensive media coverage, with newspapers publishing sensational headlines about flying saucers over the nation's capital. The sightings sparked widespread speculation, ranging from extraterrestrial visitation to secret military experiments. The public was captivated by the mystery, and pressure mounted to the U.S. government to provide answers. This period also marked a surge in reports of UFO sightings across the United States, further fueling the sense of urgency. Amid growing public interest and speculation, the U.S. Air Force took steps to address the situation. On July 29, 1952, Major General John A. Samford, then the Air Force's Director of Intelligence, held a press conference to discuss the sightings. The event was one of the largest press conferences since World War II, reflecting the level of public and media interest. General Samford stated that the sightings could largely be attributed to temperature inversions, a meteorological phenomenon. Temperature inversions occurred when a layer of warm air traps cooler air below it, creating atmospheric conditions that can cause radar signals to bend and reflect off-ground objects. This explanation was used to account for the radar anomalies. While the temperature inversion theory addressed some aspects of the incident, it left many questions unanswered. Critics of the official explanation pointed out several inconsistencies. Visual sightings. The glowing lights and erratic movements reported by pilots and ground observers were not easily explained by radar anomalies. Speed and maneuverability. The reported speeds and flight behaviors of the object were beyond the capabilities of any known aircraft in 1952. Radar reliability. Skeptics of the inversion theory noted that experienced radar operators were unlikely to misinterpret ground reflections for moving objects. These discrepancies fueled alternative theories, including speculation about advanced secret aircraft, extraterrestrial technology, or even psychological phenomena. The Washington, D.C. UFO incident had a significant impact on both public perceptions and government policies regarding UFOs. Public awareness. The incident heightened public interest in UFOs and cemented their place in popular culture. Government secrecy. The event contributed to suspicions that the government was withholding information about UFOs, leading to decades of conspiracy theories. Military protocols. The Air Force intensified its efforts to investigate and debunk UFO reports through Project Blue Book, aiming to reassure the public and reduce panic. Legacy and modern perspectives. The 1952 Washington incident remains one of the most well-documented and controversial UFO cases in history. For skeptics, it serves as an example of how natural phenomena and human error can create compelling but ultimately mundane mysteries. For UFO enthusiasts, it represents compelling evidence of unexplained aerial phenomena and a potential cover-up. In recent years, renewed interest in UFOs, now often referred to as unidentified aerial phenomenon or UAPs, has brought the Washington Flap back into focus. the U.S. government has declassified reports on UAPs and established new investigative offices, reflecting a shift toward greater transparency. This news article comes from the Washington Observer, July 30th, 1952. Saucers not aerial vehicles, Air Force says. Washington, July 29th, AP. Radar screens showed flying Whitsits over the nation's capital for 5 hours early today, but Air Force experts said they appeared to be mere layers of cold air. Major General John A. Samford, director of the Air Force Intelligence, discounted any theory that the Washington area is being menaced by unknown aerial vehicles from abroad or from other worlds. Experienced radar operators at the Civil Aeronautics Administration Traffic Control Center reported scores of unidentified objects flitting about the Capitol sky from 1:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. EST. It was the third time in 10 days that radar, an electric device which tracks only physical objects, not imagination, picked up signs of something unknown passing through pre-dawn black skies. On the 2 earlier occasions, sightings were confirmed by more than one radar set, and veteran pilots, asked to investigate, said they saw mysterious lights zooming hither and yon, all that led to one of the biggest flying saucer mysteries yet. But today's sightings, little spots on a radar screen, were unconfirmed by other radar sets in the area or by visual sky watchers, and the Air Force threw lots of cold water on any chilling speculation about men or missiles from Mars or enemy nations. Samford and fellow Air Force officers told a news conference, called especially to answer questions about the recent ongoings, that they are personally satisfied there was a natural cause. Their explanation: in hot, humid weather, such as Washington and other eastern areas have been having, layers of cold air are likely to get sandwiched between layers of warm air in what is called a temperature inversion. These layers produce strong reactions on radar screens, the officer said. They didn't add any specific explanation of the reported moving lights, but presumably the cold air layers could reflect searchlights or other lights from the Earth below. The Air Force chiefs conceded that of about 2,000 reports on flying saucers, about 400 have not yet been explained satisfactorily. The Air Force is giving these reports an adequate but not frantic check, they said. Samford put it this way: "We have received many credible reports of incredible things, but there is nothing to indicate that the things seen or reported to have been seen in the skies are vehicles, material things, missiles, or anything else that might compromise a threat to this country." When a reporter pressed the suggestion of a possible menace from some other country by means of something scientifically new, Samford said there is no such menace unless somebody has an object which has unlimited power without any mass. His implication was that he was setting up a scientific impossibility. And he denied flatly at another point that the reported sightings could have resulted from anything that the United States itself is doing. This next newspaper clip comes from the Nome Nugget in Alaska, Monday, July 28, 1952. Radar again sees flying saucers at Washington. Radar, which normally doesn't show something that isn't there, has picked up flying saucers near the nation's capital for the second time within a week. Jet fighter pilots searched the skies without directly contacting anything during the 6 hours that 4 to 12 unidentified objects intermittently appeared on radar screens at Washington National Airport and nearby Andrews Air Force Base. So far as could be determined, this was the first time jets have been sent on the trail of such sky ghosts. Officials carefully avoided mentioning flying saucers, just as they did when radar picked up 7 or 8 unidentified objects near Washington last Monday. An Air Force spokesman said, "We have no evidence they are flying saucers. Conversely, we have no evidence that they are not flying saucers. We don't know what they are." There was no argument whether the recent reports are the first of such mystery objects appearing on radar. At least, officials agreed they are unusual. Radar normally does not register anything without substance, such as light, but it can pick up such things as a bird in flight or a cloud formation, and one expert said radar is not infallible. This next clip also comes from the Nome Nugget, July 23, 1952. Flying saucers seen by radar at Washington, D.C. The Air Force Tuesday investigated reports that several flying saucers had been spotted by radar virtually in its own backyard on the outskirts of the nation's capital. Not only were unidentified objects seen on radar, indicating actual substance instead of mere light, but 2 airline pilots and a newsman saw eerie lights fitting the general description of flying saucers the same night. Officials could not immediately agree on whether this was the first time radar has picked up flying saucers. Some said it was. All agreed it was unusual. The objects also were different from the average reported saucers, in that they traveled at a relatively slow speed, as well as later disclosing the customary bursts that far outsped normal airplanes. One thing was certain. A thorough investigation is being made by the Air Technical Intelligence Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio, which has been set up to look into flying saucer reports. Such reports, officials had said, are coming in faster than at any time since the initial flood in 1947. The current average is about 100 sightings a month. This next newspaper article comes from the Cleveland, Ohio Plain Dealer, July 30th, 1952. Reports no evidence of saucer peril by Phil G. Golding. Washington, July 29th. If there is any danger to the United States from the flying saucer whatsits, the Air Force has not found it. Sudden reappearance of the aerial objects over the nation's capital and elsewhere in the East led today to a top brass Pentagon press conference conducted by the Air Force Director of Intelligence. Recent sightings over Washington were derived from natural causes, says Major General John A. Samford, who added that personally he was satisfied they were a result of temperature inversions. While he was not concerned about any of the reported objects being hostile to the United States, Samford announced the Air Force was stepping up its investigations so that an unexplained 20% of reported incidents becomes explainable. Analyze reports for 5 years. Some thought is being given to bringing in another governmental scientific body to help out. Samford announced his men had analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports of flying saucers since 1947. His conclusions: about 80% have been identified as friendly aircraft, are guided missiles and rockets, and various phenomena of meteorology and electronics. Insufficient information from observers is the primary cause for lack of identification of the other 20%. No pattern reveals anything like a purpose or anything like a consistency that in any way represents a menace to the United States. Nothing material. The saucers jumped into headlines here 2 weeks ago when they were picked up on radar screens. They swooped back and forth over the Capitol Sunday morning and were picked up again by radar this morning for several hours. Jet planes were sent to track them down Sunday, but couldn't catch them. Samford and a half-dozen aides declared the jets found nothing because there was nothing material to be found. They said the radar screens had registered temperature inversions, which occurs when warm and cold air meet and run around together. Various ground images are reflected into the air to provide the lights. Orders 200 cameras. The Air Force has ordered 200 odd cameras with refraction grids to be given to certain observers. These cameras, which have not before been used in connection with flying whatevers, will enable experts to tell whether a particular skylight is gaseous or whether it is a reflection from some garden variety headlight down on a country road. The Air Force is also toying around with the idea of buying a special telescopic camera with a 150-degree aperture to photograph the entire hemisphere with one plate. These run between $3,000 and $5,000. The cameras with grids cost only about $30. Sanford said the original method of investigation was to collect as many reports as possible to sift through them for some kind of pattern, not frantic attention. Now, he said, the Air Force was convinced that the only way to get materials suitable for scientific analysis was to bring in more scientific reports. Our present course is to continue on this problem to the best of our ability, giving it all the attention it warrants, but not frantic attention, he told newsmen. In answer to a question, he said there had been absolutely no pattern of speed or size in the unexplained 20% of the whatsits. Sanford had a rather tough time deciding on what to call the reported sights, finally deciding on things desirable to intercept. Asked about the possibility of the saucers being from a foreign nation or another planet, he replied, "If you could collect out of this mass of reports any one or two and find them with theoretically no limit to power involved or mass involved, then it could be explained as one of those things." Even in biblical times. He later added, "The highest probability is that these are phenomena associated with intellectual and scientific interests that we are on the road to learning something more about, but nothing in them is of material or vehicular or missile interests of menace to the United States." Sanford said reports of things in the skies went back to biblical times, but were more numerous today because man had put more objects in the sky and had a better opportunity to observe it. One of the several lesser officers who helped out with the specific questions during the press conference, which went on for nearly 90 minutes, said there was no basis to rumors that more explainable objects were seen around atomic energy plants. While there were more reports of such areas because of 24-hour-a-day alert guards, the percentage of unknown sights was the same as elsewhere, a captain asserted. This next newspaper article comes from the Pharos Tribune of Logansport, Indiana, July 30th, 1952, by Charles Cordry. Phenomena believed to be illusions. The Air Force offered today a combination of summer heat waves and optical and radar illusions as a plausible explanation of the latest flurry of flying saucers. Intelligence officers ridiculed the notion that the mysterious objects in the sky hail from other planets or Russia, or pose a menace to the United States. They were confident that new scientific investigations with powerful telescopes and special cameras would explain away the object as physical phenomena such as mirages, and maybe cure the nation of sauceritis. As for 3 flocks of objects sighted by radar over Washington in the past 10 days, Major General John A. Sanford, Air Force Director of Intelligence, told a news conference late Tuesday that my own mind is satisfied. They resulted from temperature inversions. This was explained in detail later by 2 electronics experts from the Air Technical Intelligence Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. They were Dr. B.L. Griffin and Captain Roy James. Air temperature, they pointed out, decreases with altitude. When a warm air mass passes over a relatively cooler one, temperature temporarily increases and an inversion layer of warm air is formed. This inversion will cause radar beams to bend earthward. Radar impulses then bounce off ground targets. What then appear as unidentified blips or tiny white lights on radar scopes are not objects in the sky, but objects on the ground. With a large inversion, street or automobile lights may be similarly reflected, as if in formation on clouds. If there is sufficient wind velocity or turbulence, these lights will appear to dance or dogfight with the phenomenal gyrations attributed to flying saucers. To settle the flying saucer mystery once and for all, Sanford disclosed that the Air Force investigation is going to take a new scientific turn. Now the Air Force is going to concentrate on some precise means of measurement of the eerie objects so that scientists can be handed manageable material for analysis, Sanford said. One device to be used is a special camera that will photograph the objects and break into its constituents the light they give off. These basic colors then may be compared with colors cast by known objects, say a neon sign or an airport approach light, so the source of flying saucers' light can be determined. Another device is the Schmidt telescope, with which vast portions of the sky and what goes on there during the night can be recorded. In conclusion, the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident is a fascinating chapter in the history of UFO phenomena. Whether interpreted as a case of misunderstood natural phenomena or as evidence of something truly extraordinary, it underscores humanity's enduring curiosity about the unknown. Decades later, the incident continues to inspire debate, research, and imagination, keeping the mystery alive for future generations. Thank you for watching this extra-long episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I felt this was a fitting topic because of the current New Jersey UFO sightings happening right now. I feel we can see a pattern going on with all these mass UFO sightings, and that these things often want to get swept under the rug and completely ignored. What are your thoughts on these popular mass UFO sightings and the New Jersey sightings? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to keep up with everything I post. You can also send me your very own encounters or sighting stories in the comments, on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or you can now send them into my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Until next time, good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.